Welcome back to Web3 Whispers, where we talk to the giga-brains and anons that power Web3. I'm Mathias with my co-host Steeb. Who do we got today?
Hey guys, well, I'm glad that we're back and recording the pod because I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, but last week I had strep throat, so we kind of had to push everything to the right a bit. But today we have CovDuk, Cove for short. And CovDuk, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the space and how long ago that was and what that journey's looked like?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
So I started like getting deep into crypto maybe like a year ago. Before that, I was like, trading stocks, doing all of that stuff. Heard about crypto, never took it like, never really like dove in. Was interested, but then slowly, just got in, read a little, stopped, and then finally I like really got in, got the essence of it, what the potential is and what crypto can do. And I was like, holy shit, this is like really fucking amazing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started like diving really deep into it. And ever since, I think like I started writing threads, I think February of this year, um, primarily as a way to like just learn better, because I think like if you're going to put your ideas in public, you want to like research them better.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then I also noticed that in Web3, there's a huge learning curve, right? And there isn't all that much content yet. There's a huge opportunity for like content writers and threaders.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing like 101s for different like blockchains and protocols and things. And that's when I started to like slowly grow. And then, yeah, I grew, I think I'm at 20 something K right now. So it's been pretty fast growth, and that's been cool. But right now, I think what I'm focused on is, um, providing like valuable content and really like helping beginners transition into Web3. Because a lot of people I talk to, at first they're like, yeah, crypto's a scam. But then when you like explain it to them, they're like, oh shit, this is really interesting, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my goal right now is just like write threads to, break that learning curve, make it smoother.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm working on a couple other projects too.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point too, because I feel like a lot of the content that you see on Twitter, on Substacks and whatnot, already makes the assumption that you know what you're doing when you're reading it. And I really like a lot of the threads that you posted and the Substacks to kind of attach to them that have been like really informative for someone that's maybe a little bit hesitant or just doesn't completely know what they're doing or just needs a little bit of help organizing the way that they go about understanding what's going on in Web3 crypto specifically.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I was gonna say,
So
God
sorry to
forbid
cut you off.
you
Yeah.
land on something that's like a no, you're good. I was just gonna say, like, God forbid you land on like some dev's blog post or something like that, and you're just like hit so many words that it's just like, what is this guy talking about? Like your content's so good for that. Like, it's easy to
Mm-hmm.
get in, it's entertaining, like it's not too like like tech heavy, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. Do you diversify? Like, are you kind of in DeFi projects, NFT projects, and crypto in general, or do you stay mostly within crypto?
Uh, I'm pretty diversified. Like I know that
Hmm.
some threaders are like only DeFi, only NFTs. To be honest, like I'm pretty interested in both sides of it, right? Like I really like
Hmm.
Web3 gaming. I like NFTs, what they hold. I also like DeFi. So it's a bit of me still figuring out what I want to do, and like what I want to specialize in, and I kind of don't like fully know yet. But
Hmm.
also I want to have fun too, right? I don't want to like pigeonhole myself into like DeFi, because I was doing this like I think the first month when it really started growing, every day I was writing like two threads, three threads, right? Like the whole day is writing threads on
Hmm.
different protocols, like 101s on like Avalanche and 101s on like whatever. And then at the end of the month, I was like, man, I'm really tired of this now, because I was just so like tired of reading white papers and just trying to break down those technical details,
Hmm.
that it was almost the point where like, yo, this isn't that fun anymore. So now I took a step back and like I bounce around quite a bit. Like the other day I wrote about the metaverse, and then before
Hmm.
that like DeFi. So now it's really like kind of what I'm interested in as well.
Hmm.
But I always try to have that like beginner approach, because I've been talking to like a lot of beginners, and they ask me like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "Yeah, I like write and do some research and in crypto." And they're like, "Oh, crypto," and then that ends up being like a 1 hour conversation of me explaining
Hmm.
crypto to them, right? And then when it happens, they get it. And I'm like, okay, if we just have better, resources, like you said, everything is so technical. And even when I approached the space, the biggest problem for me, starting off, was like I didn't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
I'd read like these huge technical threads, and like I guess 90% wouldn't make sense to me because I was a beginner. And there were some like aggregated resources, but they were all over the place. So I think the first like couple of months was just me like figuring out resources and all of that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like there's a much better way to do it. And if someone can just boil that down and make it like and have like one place where everything is like boiled down and targeting beginners,
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll like really help like mass adoption too.
So what was your methodology like when you finally figured out how to get familiar with the space? How did that happen, or was it just the overtime of trying to kind of sift through the clutter?
Yeah, I think for me it was primarily over time.
Mm-hmm.
So like reading a bunch of random stuff, half of them kind of like not so useful. But then, yeah, slowly through that process, I then found good resources. And then the good thing of that was when now someone approached me and asked me for like advice on, and they wanted to get into crypto, I could instantly like direct them to good stuff, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
out there. It's just a matter of like curating it, but also like, I guess, boiling down the things that haven't yet been boiled down.
And
And that's what I'm trying to do.
what do you think those like the best resources are for someone that's trying to get familiar with in the space, or is it just a lot of little things, or are there some like pretty good resources that you think are really helpful, just one-offs?
Yeah, I think there's some really good resources out there already. The Daily Ape, Darren Lau's Daily Ape, has like a good collection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's this one thread by Peter Yang, I believe, and essentially he starts off from the basics, right? What's a blockchain? What's Web3?
Mm-hmm.
What's an NFT? The benefits, and like it's just these like individual threads or like articles that are scattered throughout like crypto. Um, and for someone who's already been in the space for a while, I think like it's a lot easier to help direct people. But then for most people who are just entering crypto, they don't really know or have anyone who can like direct them that way.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you said you did a lot of 101s at the beginning on specific projects. So have you kind of figured out your method for what the best way is to think about a white paper and what the best way is to get to understand or get to know a project intimately enough that you can post a thread on it? What's kind of been your process when you look at like one project? If you could just walk us through.
Yeah. So, yeah, start with the white paper.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, I was still like more crypto naive. So there was like a lot of reading garbage.
Yeah.
But, you know, now I think a better way is just identify the people who are like legit,
Mm-hmm.
but not like those who are in an echo chamber, right?
Right.
Um, and they're pretty easy to find, I'd say. Like if you just like follow Avalanche stuff, you can definitely find some people who like post critical stuff, thoughtful stuff with justifications, their reasons um, to what they're saying, instead of just like, oh, Avalanche the moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's like it's a matter of like finding those people, which isn't all that difficult. But I think also a part of it comes with like being in the space for a while and like reading stuff, because I think a lot of projects, especially like the last cycle, like everyone is proclaiming themselves to be the next like ETH killer, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and like every like Twitter account you'd see for every chain, they'd have like amazing marketing and all of these different like benefits and why they're better than like ETH. But um, and for someone who doesn't really know that and someone's very new to the space, I guess it's very easy for them to look at that and you know believe it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think just like being in the space, following good people who are like encouraging you to be critical, really helped me like get better at thinking as well.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure that over this like 1 year period where you've been, getting familiar with and participating in the space, there's some things that you've learned that you feel like have been critical to the way that you operate on a day-to-day basis and in getting familiar with the space. What are some things that you've learned, and how would you translate that into advice for investors?
Advice for investors?
Yeah, advice for
Oh
people
yeah,
that
I see.
yeah.
Gotcha. Like, yeah, I think like the first thing really would be like, uh, just curate your Twitter, right? Optimize your Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
because Twitter really can be like an echo chamber, and it often is. In the
Mm-hmm.
bull run, it's like everyone's just shilling stuff and euphoric. In the bear market, I mean, half of Twitter is like empty, but it's also like a lot of fear, a lot of like um, unnecessary like fear instead of like constructive like thoughts, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think like the first thing that like I recommend for anyone in the space would be like try to follow guys who are really good, and the way you do that is like go to lists, right? Go to like find lists of people who are like
Mm-hmm.
really smart, because everyone you can like view everyone's list if they're public. So just save those lists and browse those lists instead of like your timeline, right? And that like instantly makes your Twitter like 10x better.
Yeah,
uh,
that was crazy. I think I saw you. I don't know if you had that suggestion on Twitter, but I was like, that's such a like a Twitter unlock right there, where you do like
Yeah,
the lists instead of feeds. It's ridiculous. Like the
yeah. He
feed
had
is
his
so like time consuming.
Yeah, he had that crypto Twitter, and I mean, this wasn't the title of the thread, but I know that you had that like how to really do crypto Twitter, that most people are doing it wrong thread. We really like that one.
yeah, it was just yesterday, I think like 2 days ago, I put that up
Mm-hmm.
because I mean I noticed the difference too. Because before I'd be like browsing through my timeline, and then like quality like threads, I'd probably find one in like 50, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
all the promos and like all that shit that's really useless and just waste your time. And you think you're learning
Yeah.
stuff when you're like reading a lot of these things, but you really aren't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Or
and
they're trying
then
to
like
make you exit liquidity, right? Like they're like, yeah, come by, whatever, it's amazing, and like everybody goes over there and just gets dumped on. Like,
yeah, like and it sucks because even the whole USD thing, right?
mm,
Like if you spoke out against like the lunatics, you were like screwed, right? I
yeah,
mean, you were attacked. Like,
Yeah.
so I mean, for anyone who was like new to the space, they'd be like, "Oh, this thing's giving me 20%. It's awesome, right? Like, I'm gonna put everything into it," and then they got wrecked afterwards. And it's a bad look for the space, and it's bad for the space. Uh, and it's like you can avoid that just by like curating your feed, follow smart guys, use lists. And when I started doing this, now I don't even look at my timeline anymore because there's no point really. um,
yeah. It's kind of interesting because like I think with some of these ones that like these big implosions and or like scams that go on here, like I feel like it's just so commonplace in crypto at the moment, just where it is like kind of historically, or in its like growth period here, like adoption cycle. There's just shit like, why is 20% not sustainable? Like, well, you got like forks that are giving like, or back in the day, they're like 10,000 APY, and like, people are like, oh, okay, from the outside, if you don't like start digging a little bit more. So it is, I feel like getting in new, it's just so like, you're like a lamb walking around a dark forest with a bunch of wolves. You know what I mean? Like, it's
100%.
ridiculous. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
it's
mean,
good to
like,
get your content.
yeah, like I mean, if you look back like 6 months before like the bear market started, like 1,000 APYs everywhere, and someone who's new, like they don't understand like the basics, like impermanence laws. They don't understand like liquidity pools. They just put their money in, and yeah, you're fucked.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
feels like free money to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think in a way, like maybe this bear market is good because it's like at least the silver lining of this bear market is that it'll help people like think better, and it'll help them realize, like painfully so, but it'll help people realize that there's no free lunch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it lets people like kind of reset, not have as much FOMO. Cause when you see shit just going down like 20-30% in a day, you're not like, oh man, am I going to miss out on that 100x? Like, it's like, oh, maybe I don't really want to be in these. Like, maybe I just want to sit in cash and kind of learn like the hell I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
And
So we looked at
well, yeah.
oh, go, you can go ahead,
Oh,
Matthias,
no,
no
go
worries.
ahead. Yeah.
We looked at a couple of your most recent and most popular threads. We've like I said, we've been following you for a while, so we really like the content that you've been putting out. But there are three that I marked that I just wanted to poke your brain on a little bit. The first one was the crypto Twitter and how to do it, and I know that you've kind of broken that one down, so we don't need to get into too much detail on that one. Maybe even then I'll just go to the next one, which was the top 10 crypto wallet analysis. That was a really cool thread. I think that is kind of taking that first step into following the right people on Twitter too. What are a couple of the things that you learned during your analysis of those top 10 wallets that changed the way that you think about investing?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, that was a. It got some positive attention that blew up a little bit.
Yeah, it did.
Um, I think yeah, that was. It taught me a good amount. I think so. What I did was I just like went to DBank, found like the top wallets, and then like looked at their DBank holdings. Oh yeah, so DBank essentially, for people who don't know, is like this platform that shows um, the holdings in a wallet. It's
Mm-hmm.
on EVM and like ETH and EVM chains, but so I was looking at it, and of course, it's not their like complete wallet or anything. But um, some of the things that stood out to me were like a lot of these whales are using like are focusing on like stable farming and yield farming on stables, like
Mm-hmm.
heavily so. And for them, it makes sense because if you have like I don't know, like $1 million, you can like just live off of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, but more importantly, it's just the value of like stable coins, right? And going back to what we were talking about, in a world where there are like 10,000 APYs, stable coins aren't that sexy or aren't that interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think they're like incredibly vital, and it just goes to show how vital they are because having liquidity is like key, right? If you don't have liquidity, you can't get in opportunities. That sucks. Um, but also just like earning like 10%, 20% is still on like safer returns is so much better than gambling and like
Mm-hmm.
gambling like the majority of your portfolio away. I think that's why a lot of people got wrecked too because they're in all these different farms, pools that were really unsustainable. And if you had like a greater proportion of your like net worth in stables, you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have lost as much. So I think for me that really told me to like okay, I was like I was never that like particular on my like boundaries. I always had these like rules, right? Okay, like 40%, 50% of my portfolio in stables. But in the bull market, it's easy to like jump over that boundary and like not really stick to those like defined
Yeah.
brackets, right? But that and just like this bear market as well really goes to show that like just be safe, like there's no
Mm-hmm.
free lunch. Um, you'd rather like sure you won't make like crazy bets, but you only hear about the winners, you never hear about the losers anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep your like portfolio in a good amount in stables. Be safe. You're not gonna make it all in like one bet. um, I think that was one learning from that. What else?
Yeah, and I
I
think
think
on
there's
that note too,
mhm.
it's a good point. I think it's so important to taking a step back from risk management, like just giving yourself some commandments, like some borders to kind of live by, some rules to live by when you're in the space, and not and really like having the discipline to not break any of those commandments that you kind of set for yourself, whether that's like, oh, 60% of my portfolio in stables or whatever. And then, the other 40% into like whatever other projects, living by those so that, you're mitigating risk when you decide like all of a sudden, like, oh, X little guy project is going to blow up. Now I'm going to put all my money in that. And then you just end up becoming exit liquidity. It's like giving yourself some rules to live by when you're in the space is so important, and actually having the discipline to not break those.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think like everyone knows that, but then they don't really follow it, right?
Right. Yeah,
And
it's a
I mean, I
discipline.
was the same too. Yeah, sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, no, you're right. It's really that discipline. Like everyone understands portfolio management, portfolio
Yeah.
diversity, and whatnot. But I'd say 90% or even more of people don't have the discipline to actually stick to that rule.
Oh, 100%. And I was
Yeah.
the same too. Like, there's so many times when I had these rules, and I was trading, even before crypto, I was trading like stocks and options. And it's so easy, like, when your asset is pumping, it's so easy to like forget your rules. When you're supposed to sell, but you don't anyway. And you
Hmm.
like ape in more than you're supposed to. And like, inevitably, in the long term, you get wrecked. You may win like one of those trades, investments, sure, but you're not going to win long term, right?
Hmm.
And for me, like, I was taught that painfully by like losing money at each step. Uh, so like now, because of like losing money at each step before that, I'm like, okay, I can't do this again, because like I know for a fact that I'm most certainly gonna like lose. And I
Hmm.
think like doing that has helped me a lot too. Like this whole recent like crash as well, like I didn't lose as much because I learned from the previous mistakes. And I think in that sense, I hope people at least like learn that from like this cycle,
Hmm.
and really like etch that into their hearts, right? Because that's like survivability in this market is like the number one thing if you want to
Hmm.
make it.
Yeah, if you get your ass kicked by the market, it's really easy to walk away, and I think that survivability and resilience in the market is so important. And it's good that some people like yourself had that learning lesson before this market, but unfortunately, I feel like the majority of people learn that lesson during this market.
Yeah, and it's super unfortunate too. Like
Definitely.
I was looking at like posts of like really people um mortgaging their house and like things like that, and man, that's a lot. You don't want to be in that position.
Yeah, it's terrifying. So were there any other points from the analysis, like big takeaways that you wanted to talk about, or do you want to move on to the next thread that I have?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one.
Hmm.
More than that was just like interest in like some other chains like Phantom. There was some interest and some protocols, but I think like that article is like what, a month and a half old now. So I think a lot, and that was kind of before like the big crash and stuff too.
Hmm.
So I think like a lot has changed.
Hmm.
So I think the biggest takeaway though is like stable coins and like risk management.
Yeah, maybe it's time for you to do a thread on what the top 10 wallets were doing during the bear cycle.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about it. So yeah, that might be coming out soon.
That's exciting. And then the next thread, the last one that I have, and then I'll pass it off to Matthias to ask some questions because I always end up monopolizing the beginning of our conversations.
That's all good.
Um, is the Web3 marketing thread that you had. So I thought that was a cool one for anyone listening to podcasts, anyone thinking about getting into Web3 via starting a project, being a part of a project team, being a contributor, a mod, whatever. Talk to us a little bit about that thread, the Web3 marketing, what the do's and don'ts are, and what were some of your big takeaways from that thread?
Yeah. So essentially, this thread was um, a marketing approach that worked for me,
Hmm.
and it kind of like took from my growth on Twitter as well, right?
Hmm.
So starting off with my Twitter, I think the reason for the fastest growth, the reason I had the most important reason why I had like pretty fast growth was due to the fact that I was like just giving out value for free, right? I was just doing this research, and of course, I was consistent. I was doing it every day, but I was giving value out for free, right? And that got me thinking about like projects, because if you look at like protocol project marketing or like project marketing, a lot of it is just centered around like shilling their features, shilling like their product. And even when you have like 10, 20, 500 followers, every day there's like 1,000 new projects, right? No one has the attention, and everyone's also tired of just like seeing just each project chilling. You have all these bots. A lot
Hmm.
of it is like disingenuous, like going back to like the the ETH killers that we talked about, right? Like for a newbie, like it's so overwhelming, right? Um, and anyone in crypto, like very few people have a deep enough understanding in all these different like silos, right?
Hmm.
So what I started doing with some projects that I was working with was just giving out like value for free, right? Just as I was writing like threads and like um, that thing on my like private Twitter, on the main Twitter, I started doing that for these different projects I was working with. So we'd identify like the target audience, and then based on that, we'd think of like relevant articles. So, for example, this one startup that I'm working on, FusePass, right? It's a Web3 recruiting startup. And what we realized quickly was, oh yeah, and before that, the target is essentially like Web2 devs trying to make their jump into Web3, right? So there's so many opportunities there to write content that's targeting like those Web2 devs making the leap into Web3, right? So different resource aggregation, like how can you or laying out like a path for them, because the path really isn't there. or isn't very clear for most people who are just entering the space, right? So just making those things simple for those guys, and that really like helped us grow quite fast and quite quickly once we started using that, and did this in a couple other places too. It's a matter of like finding what your audience wants, and then just
Mm-hmm.
giving out content for free, right? Of course, that means you gotta like, as a project, you gotta like put in more manpower into like marketing and writing, or it could be, it doesn't have to be content per se. It could be some other form that is useful and more relevant to your audience. But just doing that, I think, will help you stand out so much more than just listing out features and shilling like um, your project under like every comment section.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is, like, no one's reading it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the bulk of the retweets are going to be bots anyway. So it's like trying to understand what the true audience, what their psyche looks like, understanding what the demand is there, and providing that value um, to the people that are providing that value in a way that you are satiating like exactly what they want.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even as a project, you'd rather have like 1,000 followers of people who are more likely to convert and become users
Mm-hmm.
than folks who are just like 10,000, like 50,000 bots who like aren't going to do anything, right?
Yeah, no,
So,
100%.
and like, yeah, with this approach too, I learned that the audience you'd get and the followers you get are of much higher quality, and a lot of them are like willing to make the jump, at least try your project out. They're curious about what you're building too. So yeah, I think that's an approach that worked for me, and I think it also provides value to the greater the crypto ecosystem, because if there's more content, more like things given out for free, like
Mm-hmm.
people can learn faster, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I find a lot of similarities between like that concept and this concept of like NFTs as a means for subscriptions. I was reading an article recently. I can't remember who wrote it, and I think I wrote a little thread on it too. But I was reading an article recently, and it was just talking about how like the switch from like Web2 subscriptions, subscription-based services, where Twitch or whatever company they dictate what amount of the fees they take from these different content providers, et cetera, et cetera. So it was just talking about like the value of one faithful subscriber versus, the value of someone who's just willing to shell out like the $3 a month to like watch your content, and what that means is like when you make the switch to another content provider, when you make the switch to, subscriptions as an NFT, like which subscribers will actually make that switch with you because they are attracted to and in tune with like exactly what you're putting out as content. So it's like the value of a true subscriber, I feel like, is kind of synonymous with like the value of a true follower. If you have, one follower, I think one follower is worth like a million bots, really. I mean, the only good thing bots do for someone's account is they give you a little bit of clout, right? You have a lot of followers, even if like half of those are bots, it gives you a little bit of clout. But realistically, like the second you post a tweet, like how many retweets are you going to get if 20,000 of your 30,000 followers are bots? You're not going to get that much. So a true follower has so much more value than these bots.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think
Mm-hmm.
like um yeah, like, because attention is scarce, so many projects coming out. Yeah, like, what's the point of having like 50K clout followers, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
um so
To
yeah, I think for
flex. That's the
except
whole
flex,
reason for
All
yeah.
it is
all
a
Twitter,
flex.
right? All Twitter's about flexing.
Yeah, 100%. But you really want to flex with like a project account, might as well flex with your personal account then, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
like,
that's
I
true.
mean, I don't even know what you're doing. But yeah, yeah, I think it's bad for the space as well, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at the number of bots like Azuki and BAYC. Those bots, like every day I was getting a new founder like DMing me or some shit, and I was like, "Yo, this is a bit much, right? It's so
Yeah.
annoying." And it's like, it's bad for like, again, beginners too, because they'll click the links, they'll get caught in those phishing scams
Mm-hmm.
because they just don't know, right? And I think that's in part why like crypto gets a bad name too, because a lot of people just get burnt and they see these scams happening, and like,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's not a good look for the space, and it hinders like more people coming in.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
interesting when I look.
crypto to. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's interesting when I look back at like my time in the space and just thinking through like how my intuition when it comes to content has grown. Like I think, at this point, if I see a tweet, generally I have a pretty good idea of like whether or not it's legit. Just from, I don't know, a lot of it I think is subconscious, just like seeing so many like scam shills in the past. And, but if I look back at like a year ago, it's like I felt like a, doe-eyed crypto first timer or something like that. And it's just like, your intuition grows so much the more you get exposed to all of this shit.
Yeah, it's funny because yeah, it was exact same. Because you see like this complete like biased, one-sided post like shilling something, and you're like, oh, that's amazing, it's really cool, this is going to be life-changing, right?
Hmm.
But it's really not. And then yeah, I think yeah, like one of the ways you got to learn that is just by like being in the space and like
Hmm.
kind of dealing with all of those. But of course, you don't want to like be losing money or getting scammed when you're like supposedly learning. So
Yeah. It's better
I
just to
think
like, it's better just to operate like skeptically, I feel like, in the space in the first place. Just like question everything you see.
oh yeah, 100%. And I think like no influencer, no writer, like no one is just purely acting on like goodwill, right? They always have like their own like
Yeah.
agendas and things, and like of course exit liquidity, right?
Right. They
Because you
want
see
to
so
pump their
many of like
bags.
exactly, you see so many like of these like influencers getting like caught where they, like shill a coin and the next day they dump it, and the people buying it are all these like noobs who are getting like wrecked by it. And of course, if you like lose like 10K, because you trusted this guy, you're not coming back to the space.
Yeah, 100%. I'll pass it over to you, Matthias. Sorry for the monopoly.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, crypto college tuition is very expensive for new people. Like you gotta kind of pay to learn one way or the other, unless you're just, you know, you just don't
Yeah,
feel any FOMO at all, right?
yeah, unfortunately so. And I think, I mean, to be fair, I think learning um, in any like aspect of this sort of thing, like finance, whatever, is like there's always going to be some pain involved. But I think crypto, there's like extra pain involved just because of all the scams and how much of noise there is too. And I think it'll get better eventually. Like it's already like getting better, and you see, um, at least I've been seeing fewer of those scammy posts, but um, right now it's definitely very, very expensive tuition for a beginner who especially doesn't have any
Yeah.
like support of any sort.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if these institutions are getting hammered too, like like people are messing up left, right, and center. Even like some of the big guys are getting fished or getting, I think Arthur got hit a little while, a couple months
Oh
back, maybe a
yeah,
month back or something like that. Like, I mean, it's just people are getting more sophisticated. Like it's all online. Like there's the safety wheel. The training wheels are off from day one for crypto, so it's pretty tough.
yeah.
Um, I was going to ask you, so how open were, I mean, one of the nice things about it being such a small space and kind of new and nascent is like that a lot of people seem really open. How were a lot of the influencers that you reached out to for that one article? Were they pretty open? Did you have to reach out to 100 before you got like 10 answers? Or was it like you already knew them? How did you get a hold of them? What was the process like?
Is it the one where I interviewed the different?
Yeah.
Oh, that one, right, right, right. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, I think so. A couple of them I was talking a little bit before, so they were like, I like one or two of them responded quickly, but yeah, I think I sent out like probably over 100 DMs,
Oh,
um,
okay. Yeah.
like a ton of them because it really like messed up my DMs for a long time because I'd scroll down to find old chats and just be like, "Hey, I have this thing. Can you answer these questions?" And uh, but no, I think like yeah, definitely a couple of hundred DMs. But I mean, it's still really cool that 100 DMs isn't that much, right? To get some of these like really
Yeah.
smart people to reply to you. Um, if you like look at other spaces that's way more saturated, getting access to these guys is near impossible for someone like who's just reaching out to them. And I think like with crypto, like even CT being so small, the cool thing is like, yeah, like 10 people may not respond, like 15, 20 might not, but there's always going to be people who will like eventually respond. And of course, these guys are busy, but someone's going to see your message just because it's not saturated. It's not that saturated. So someone's going to see your message and someone's going to reply to you. And I think that's another thing that people should also do, is just like reach out to these guys, right? Ask them questions, like get their inputs on things, because a lot of people on Twitter are really open to having conversation. I think that's why they're on Twitter, right? Because they want to have conversations. So
Yeah.
that's another great way to learn if you're a beginner. Just like reach out to like smart people on Twitter, and some of them
Yeah.
will reply to you.
Do you like have specific questions? So you kind of had a like general advice, where we're headed, what's your mindset, those kind of general ones. Did you ever, when you were DMing, like have tailor-made ones for them, or was it always kind of template just because there's so many?
I tailor made a few, but then eventually got lazy and I was like, yeah, I can't tailor make like 100 of these. So I
Yeah,
ended
you're
up
like, yeah,
like,
there's no way.
yeah, like fuck it,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just like template it. So there were a few tailor made, but it was just mainly this like template and then just sending that out to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it is nice though. Like, even if you tag people or like whatever, they usually will respond. Like, I mean, they're not that inaccessible, except for like some of the really big accounts. Like, I mean, I've had fairly like famous, fairly rich, like like people
Yeah,
that would never, take an interview with you, like respond to your DM or respond to a tagged message or DM or something. So, yeah.
yeah. I think like Kyle replied to me and I was like, from Multicap, and I was like, shit, what
Mm.
the hell? Because I was like, because I sent it to him, but I wasn't expecting him to reply to it. But yeah, like if they just see it, happen to see it, a lot of the times these guys are like open to like replying to you and like giving you advice.
It's
So
funny that you mentioned him too, like, because I think he's pretty open. But did you see the one where somebody was like, he asked like, who's building decentralized Airbnb or something like that? I don't know if you saw that on crypto
I did
Twitter.
not see it. No.
Oh man, somebody, so he like posted that, and then somebody's like, oh yeah, like these guys over at DN are building it. And he's like, DN? He's like, these nuts. This is like, fuck.
Dude, I
Deanna,
saw.
yeah,
Oh,
the
I
good
didn't
old
see that. I didn't see.
got him with the Deanna this dick joke. Classic.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like so funny.
Uh,
But it's like, that's the trench warfare of DMs and
Oh my
stuff, man. It's
gosh,
like
that's
crypto
dude,
funny.
Twitter sending shit.
it was so good. I think like there was one
Yeah.
week, like a couple of weeks ago, where the DN jokes were everywhere and like targeting all these boomer investors, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
like at least a good amount of them fell for it, and it was just so good, like gold tier comedy right there.
I can't wait till we get like Peter Schiff and like some senators and shit. You know what I mean? Like they get caught up in it.
Yeah,
Like
that,
Peter, I know
that
how you feel about gold, but what about DN? Like
that
what?
that reminds me of that reminds me a lot of the Tracy tweets. Matthias, have you seen those ones?
No, what are they?
Tracing my nut all over your face.
Got him.
So it's like people just get so creative with them and shit like that. It's like ridiculous, but it's so
Yeah.
funny.
And I
Dude.
think
It
that,
is
that's
fun.
also because like I think half or even more of the giga-brains just like shitpost and meme, right?
Yeah, no,
Like
it's kind of
Yeah.
just
crazy.
like all the traders and all those folks just like shitpost, and yeah, all these boomers just get caught up in it, and it's just so funny to watch.
Yeah, and the shit
Yeah,
posts
I
can
know.
be the shit posts can be like blatantly serious too. And so like someone who's kind of new in the space will just be like, "Oh, this is for real." Like it's not the shit posts aren't always just like, bad language, like not bad language like profanity, but just like, you know what I mean, like almost illiterate language and just like sometimes the shit posts are legit. Like they seem so real and some people just fall for it and they get their ass kicked.
Dude, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
I know, it's so funny because like somebody was posting something like, man, these guys like researchers at all these like hedge funds and shit, they gotta have everybody like on follow, but then you get somebody like Degen Spartan or like Heartwood or something.
uh,
It's just like half hentai. Like there's
did
never
you guys
like
see like
any
the other
alpha.
day? Yeah, he's just
Yeah,
like
like there's one alpha post for like 20
he was
hentai
just
posts.
posting like
goddamn.
hentai posts, and then
Yeah.
CZ ended up like following this hentai account, and I was like, what
I saw
happening,
that.
bro?
That's so funny.
Accidentally,
Accidentally.
dude. Just
Yeah.
gotta make sure there's no alpha there.
Just slipped and followed. Yeah.
It's.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like after all this technical bullshit, like a good
Yeah.
meme is all you need.
Little
Like,
palate cleanser,
yeah,
mental
a
palate
good
Yeah.
palate
cleanser.
cleanser. Like,
Yeah.
because I
No.
saw that and I died when I saw like CZ doing it.
Oh yeah, I saw that too. They screen capped it. They're like, like shit, get in here, small shit, get in here, get in.
Like
Shit.
instant inverse brow right there.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I do like Degen Spartan stuff's pretty good, and there's a lot of guys in here that are like, yeah, like I mean, where else would you have access to like 9-figure, like maybe even like
Mhm.
some 10-figure whales? Like you don't know how these guys have been around for so long and kind of been at the top of their game for like since the beginning.
Yeah.
Where else would you have like access,
Well,
to that
I
kind of stuff?
feel like so much of it too is like you say like they've been around for so long, but like it's so long relatively, right? Like we always talk about
Yeah.
how quickly the space moves and how 1 year IRL is like 10 years in crypto or something like that. And it's like it feels like a lot of it is these people were in our shoes, in like the common person's shoes, like not too long ago. And so like the memory of like being in those shoes and like the ability to like kind of empathize and just wanting to like talk a bit about their experience and whatnot is much more vibrant, or like it's much more vibrant than in real life. Like when you talk to like a CEO, like you talk to someone on the board, it's like they were in your shoes like 50 years ago. They weren't in your shoes like 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, the generational stuff is crazy too. I was
Yeah.
just listening to something on they're going over the history of Peter Lynch, like what his childhood and like how he came up and all this kind of stuff. Like a lot of these guys, or even like Warren Buffett and some of these guys, they basically are doing what we're doing now, right? Like
Hmm.
they're going through stocks, they're going through like what they were doing was going through stocks, like going through their basically their white papers,
Yeah.
the quarterly reports or whatever, and they're looking for undervalued stuff that's going to blow up. They're looking for that 100x gem in the rough. Like they were just looking for 10x gems, and it's literally the same shit that we're going through now. Like you're scrolling through or going through so much stuff to sift through the signal from the noise. Like it's just funny that they, like, I think a lot of the TradFi has forgotten about that or
Hmm.
wasn't around for that time, that now they're just like, oh yeah, this shit's a scam. Like, but it just
100%.
solidified it, in my mind. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is legit.
Yeah. I think also on the other hand, like people look up and look at like folks like Warren Buffett, and it's like, yeah, I could never be like that, right? They were just like
Yeah.
built different, but then now you see like all those like equivalent like crypto like OGs who are just like shit posting and being more accessible, more like human almost, right? And
Hmm.
then
Yeah.
and like they share their learnings, they're way more open about it too, and it's like, oh, like I can do this too then, right? Like
Yeah.
if I like do it, like I can just follow what they're doing, I can like learn from them, but I'm still in the right space at the right time, and I have the opportunity, and I can actually execute on this.
Hmm.
We're
And it gives you
still
that
early.
confidence thing. Exactly, we're still early, bro.
No, but I
Uh,
mean, for sure, I do agree with you, because I think a lot of people on crypto Twitter, like, they're not the generational gap. Like, they're not like 50 or 60 for
Hmm.
for the most part. But also, I feel like they didn't go through a lot of the stuff like maybe a Warren Buffett or some of the TradFi guys went through, like the hazing that was like a very
mhm.
real. Like, if you're Catholic or Jewish, or you couldn't be working at, you couldn't work at Goldman Sachs if you were Catholic, or you couldn't work as a Jew at, another a Protestant firm or whatever. Like they're actual
Yeah,
biases that were there. So they were like legitimately hazed and barred from places like crypto Twitter. They're like you can post hentai all you want, and they're like, yeah, you want to, you want an allocation, that's
yeah.
cool, like, like,
Uh,
so like
So
there
much.
isn't that, like, yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, and so
yeah.
much of that I feel like is an aversion to TradFi too. Like everyone just tries to do the opposite of what people are doing in TradFi. Not mechanically necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
but like from a personality standpoint.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think even
Mm,
people that came up or in TradFi or like have a TradFi background are like, oh, I don't want to do that shit. You know what I mean? I don't want that
Yeah.
culture to kind of follow
yeah,
me here.
yeah.
They want a better
100%.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like, yeah, that's why like they're also open to like, just memeing, posting hentai, like whatever shit posting, because people just, I mean, a lot of it is like kind of unnecessary if you think about it. Like, do
Mm-hmm.
you really want to put up these like formal walls and act a certain way? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, sure, but like it would be nicer if you could just break it down, right? And not have it at
Yeah.
all, and just like focus on skill, focus on like talent instead of like all these other things that shouldn't really matter.
Yeah, there'd be
Yeah.
so many more people in TradFi if like hentai was in the company email, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
HR would be having too much. There'd be 100-man HRs and shit.
You'd
We
have
don't
like a
need
hentai
HR.
merchant.
We don't have
Companies.
HR in crypto. Just get the HR out of
Yeah,
TradFi.
exactly. We'll get rid of all of it. But I mean, yeah, it is so true, and I think a lot of these guys just have that, like, that fuck you money already.
Hmm.
When
Yeah.
you have like 9 figures, you're just like, okay, like, they're just like done, or even like 7, 8 figures. They're like, great, I can stake in DeFi and just live off the proceeds forever.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so it's nice that they're not really trying to prove anything. So they do like they are generally pretty cool and will help you
Hmm.
out. Like if you're coming to them like in the right mindset, I think for sure. Cause I think a lot of guys getting in
Yeah.
new are just like so desperate that
Yeah.
they just don't even know what to ask. You know, if they got like a interview with like DJ Spartan or Kobe or
Yeah.
something, they're just like, can you wire me $1,000,000, like $10 million?
Just
It's just like, like they're
just
just
send me
super
10
annoying.
ETH, bro. Please send me 10 ETH.
Yeah, please
Please
change my
send me
life and
the.
send me 10 ETH. Like
how,
teach
how
a
can I
man to
get rich by
fish.
tomorrow? And
Yeah.
what should I invest in like right now? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
think
what's the
that
100x gem?
exactly, and I think that probably pisses them off too, right? Because
Right.
like if you ask like very basic questions that like are Googleable, like you're wasting their time, but you're also like wasting your opportunity to talk to them. So
Yeah.
like
Right.
it definitely like you should definitely prepare, like think about it, and a lot of them are also like against like this echo chamber stuff, right? They hear that they ask questions, they want to hear insightful conversation, insightful debate. So if you're just like blind and like completely like um sheep almost, right? Like
Hmm.
they're not gonna like it because you're not thinking and they want you to like think. So I think like just learning the culture as well, because a lot of these like shit posters too, like in all that hentai and all that like those pepes and everything, like there's alpha in there, right?
Hmm.
But then most people can't like discern that. To them it's just like a weird frog on the screen and like there's charts and stuff. But that's the thing, like all of these guys, they drop like some of the most valuable alpha out there. Like you don't have to waste time like scouring discords for alpha. Just learn the culture, right? Try to
Hmm.
like understand what they're saying, and eventually you understand hentai what hentai does with the next like has to do with the next like 10x coin, right?
Yeah.
Because like
Hentai
there
is
is
the
something.
connection. Hentai is the
My
bridge
parents are
from
gonna
Web
probably
2 to
watch
Web
this,
3.
and I'm gonna get a call after this.
Yeah, exactly.
But exactly, right? Like all of this, like there's alpha, but you need to learn the culture, right? Going back, like that no free lunch. You got to put in the hours. You got to like
Hmm.
understand this culture. You just can't be like have the trade fi mindset, that old mindset that crypto is trying to like get away from. And like if you can like learn it, and it's not that hard to learn, you just have to like follow them and engage with them, and slowly over time you will learn it, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest edge, like kind of the biggest edge you can give yourself.
Well, yeah, I think it's something that like a lot of people too, like they realize when you're playing poker as well. It's like these guys that will splash the pod, or so
Hmm.
basically like if you like let's say you DM Kobe or whatever, and you're like, please send me 10 ETH, and it would change my life. He's like, okay, done, here's 10 ETH. You're literally probably gonna just go like 5x lever that on Binance or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're gonna lose it when you
Yes,
have
you
that kind
do.
of mindset. You're gonna lose it so fast.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
about that thing, right? Don't like give a
Yeah.
man a fish, teach him how to fish.
Exactly, exactly. Like, I mean, that's I think what the most frustrating part is, and the learning curve is just so steep in crypto too. It's just like, I mean, you could go from like, just using Coinbase to like legitimately never using a centralized
Yeah.
exchange and, minting from the contract and whatever. Like,
Well,
I
and
mean, like that one that happened Optimism. That's insane.
and
Oh yeah.
the thing too, I feel like is like the learning curve. If everything were static, would still be steep, and but you could get there, right? But it's like nothing is static here. It's just so rapidly
True.
shifting. It's like the learning, like it's tough trying to learn when something that you learned like 2 days ago could just be out of date.
Yeah. You bring
Yeah.
up a good point, actually. I think like that makes a lot of sense because it's incredibly overwhelming, and I think most people who want to dabble in crypto like just don't have the time, or they can't go like full send into crypto, right?
Hmm.
And you
Mm-hmm.
really can't expect everyone to go full send into crypto and dedicate like hours like keeping up and reading everything. Because even like I spend like a lot of hours on Twitter, but then every day there are things that I miss, like big things, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm sure everyone feels that way because it's such a huge space, and I think that's why there's a huge opportunity for like content creators to solve this problem, right? Getting that leverage, because it's beneficial for you as a content creator because you can get like immense leverage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also it's a big problem to solve that can really benefit the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's stuff like, like Maple Finance had its like LBP like It was like last month. I was like, how the fuck did I miss
Yeah.
this? Like, you know what I mean? And everyone's like, oh yeah, this is an amazing product. I mean, I do like Maple and stuff like that. I think it's pretty cool. I wonder what do you think on some of these, like, as we're talking about this, you know, like their asymmetry of information, like, you know, big players are kind of like, I mean, there's some benevolent, you know, whales, but there is a lot of like big sharks that are out
Yeah.
there, you know. Um, do you think that's going to change in the future? Do you think that's kind of just like how the nature of markets, anyways? It's probably in TradFi as well. Like, what's your take on that?
I don't think it'll be this bad over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think like, you know, there's obviously an incredible amount of this asymmetry here to the point where like the people in the know can like completely like wreck like retail investors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's like unsustainable like Ponzi's. Um, I think that's also going to have to do with like just understanding that like understanding where value comes from and like trying to like you as an individual should be able to like discern or like have somewhat of a sense of okay, is this a Ponzi, does this make sense, or is it not? But you can't just see like 100% APY because the sharks, it's an opportunity for them because they see like all these like relatively inexperienced, unknowledgeable like folks coming in, and of course they're gonna like short you. Of course they're gonna wreck you, right? They're gonna dump on you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like I mean as time goes on, I think security will get better and Ponzi's will decrease. So that will like better it. But on the other hand, like whenever there's an opportunity for a whale, I think they're gonna take it. So
Yeah.
and I think like even as crypto like matures and becomes less wild west, I still think if there are opportunities, they'll take them. But I think the average investor will get like smarter and there'll be like, a lot of safety rails to protect them as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think that like a lot of people that are kind of against like investor laws, like sophisticated
Mhm.
investor laws, don't realize like this is basically what it would be like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know
exactly.
what I mean? Like, but probably worse because this is like it's literally like all online. You know, everybody's kind of here to help too. Like everybody's like, oh, I learned this, I'll tell you about it, or like you can make groups like. You know, like if you did that with like TradFi, like JP Morgan would definitely be like, like just shitting on you every day, like, and just taking
100%.
all of your money. There would just be nothing like nothing you could really do. Like, you know, it's just so I don't know.
Yeah.
People like to pretend that like crypto is like, oh, it's so like a good old boys club or like it's biased or what. It's like literally like mostly hentai profile
Yeah.
pictures or anime profile pictures. Like I don't even know half these people like what anything is with that. Like,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't even matter at all. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy that people think it's like restrictive at all. Like it's the most egalitarian place you could possibly be.
100%.
But
And I think it's also like
one
inevitable. Oh, sorry.
yeah. Oh no, I was just saying one hentai picture and everybody's like, "Oh, this must be a bad thing," Like
Yeah.
it's just like literally, but I do feel like that's a veil to keep people that are like kind of would not be fun anyways out a little
Yeah.
bit.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's a
oh, if
good
they're going to
point.
be
I
yeah, like if they're going
was
to be that,
I was
whatever,
listening to
it's
this
crazy.
Uncommon Core podcast. I think it was like
Yeah.
with Fiskantes and Matsi, where they talk
Mhm.
about like in a way all this shit posting, these memes and everything. Um, it's like on the surface, it's just like degenerate stuff, right? But
Yeah.
it's also it has a secondary purpose. It kind of keeps like all those people. It doesn't like this all this like exclusive knowledge almost, right? All this alpha, all this information, this boys club almost, right? And it serves as like a barrier between like everyone else and people who are in the know.
Yeah,
Hmm.
for sure. Which I always thought was hilariously like hypocritical that everybody's like, or people outside will be like, "Oh, it's just a boys' club because they post like, naked girl pictures." Like, well, you mean none of these lesbians are coming in? Like, what is everybody just like? It's only, like that's a pretty big assumption you're just jumping to.
Yeah,
Like, they already have it formed in their mind, like who the bad guy is,
yeah,
and that they're, but it's I think that kind of mindset of like people like, oh, I'm a victim, or oh, like I couldn't do it because like there was some invisible force holding me down. Like crypto is what will equalize. It is the great
yeah,
equalizer. There's nobody like, I mean, there's free coding courses, there's free whatever courses all online. Like you can, it's all about how much you put into it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think like um, the potential that it holds to like change a lot of the things. I don't think it's going to change like everything and create a perfect utopia, of course, but it has the potential to create so much of positive change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of sad that a lot of people outside this space are very very quick to dismiss it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they've just been fed this like narrative, and they don't do research, they don't have time, the interest, whatever, but they're just so against it. And like even Web3 gaming, for example, I think like Dr. Disrespect a while ago tweeted something about an NFT collection. I was reading the comments, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone was just shitting on him for like creating an NFT collection or making like a blockchain game or something. And I was like, the benefits that blockchain games have are like really really immense and can like really better the gaming ecosystem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like people just don't like know that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, I feel like it's this like aversion to something that's different and unknown that so many people outside of the space have that creates that sort of perception of this being like a boys club and whatnot. It's like their own defense mechanism for like giving themselves reasoning with themselves of why they're not going to get into it. And it's their way of like shilling out like, oh, don't get into crypto, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
Like tradfi person is, trying to reason with themselves and reason with other people like
yeah,
why they shouldn't get in. uh,
yeah.
and I
And
think
I
that
think it's also sorry, go on.
no, I was just going to say, I think a lot of that has to do with like this sort of artificial secondary barrier that you're talking about, like this culture that we have within the space that sort of serves as like a synthetic way to, push people that shouldn't be in the space or would do the space kind of harm out of getting into the space.
Yeah, I always thought that was kind of funny too, because like, I mean, regardless of what it is, right? Like,
Hmm.
if someone's making like hundreds of thousands of dollars selling like things, JPEGs, whatever, it would pique my curiosity. I want to make like hundreds of thousands, right? So at
Yeah.
least I'd be like
Mm-hmm.
open minded to it. And I think that having like an open mind to it
Well, I think
would
a
be
lot of
really beneficial.
sorry,
No, no,
sorry,
go on, go on.
my thing cut out. But I was just gonna say, like, I think a lot of these people though that are really like you can't convince them. Like, I feel like there's people that are like curious and they're
Yeah,
like, oh, I've heard bad things, but I'm kind of open. Like, I'm like, what is it? Like, it sounds weird, but like, and then there's people that are like, no, you're boiling the seas, and like, there's literally nothing you
yeah,
could say that like those people are so like unhappy to their core. Like they don't
yeah,
want to see like because I mean crypto is a lot of self-responsibility as well.
Hmm.
It's like
hmm,
if you lose money, it's kind of your fault. Like if you like make money, it's kind of your fault. Like if like if you do really well with it, like okay, good. Like it's
Hmm.
it's your fault. It's all kind of based on your own
yeah,
efforts.
Yeah. 50
So
year
they
old.
don't really want that. Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah,
Matthias, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, go for it.
No,
You're good.
I was
You're
just gonna
good.
say, like, 50-year-old TradFi investor doesn't want to see like 16-year-old, make $1 million. That's like I feel
yeah,
like a lot
Yeah.
of it just has to do with like that unhappiness with like how things have changed and how like there's so
yeah.
much money getting shifted down to every kind of demographic.
True. I think like
Yeah.
it's also like very weird for them because all their lives they have these like models, right? You got to go like work like in this big firm, like progress up the ladder or whatever, whatever, and then you see like a 15-year-old like who sold something for like 20 million,
Yeah,
and like it pisses you off, I guess.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think there are like a couple of different groups. There's one that like would like to learn more, but then like I guess they don't like have the time or they don't have the right resources. And
Hmm.
then definitely like these folks who like just hate it. And I think a lot of the popular like criticisms of crypto too are just like wrong, right? Like
Hmm.
Yeah.
or like outdated, wrong, or completely like
Just
baseless.
just
And
uninformed, yeah,
Yeah,
uninformed
exactly.
or just
opinions.
completely fabricated.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I do feel like there's an unfortunate population that is like basically held hostage. Like a lot of these artists that are like,
Hmm.
oh, well, if I come out, and I say I'm doing an NFT project, like, you know, it feels like all my community, but really it's probably like 2 to like, 10% basically will just go tell me to like kill myself. Like, it's like literally that
Yeah.
bad. Like
Hmm.
and so it's like they don't want like to get 100 notifications on Twitter like that they're killing
Oh
they're
yeah.
so bad and whatever. Like so I think they're kind of being held hostage, though I think they will break those chains at some
Yeah.
point where they'll just go, fuck it, I'm on I'm on mute, like I'm on broadcast only on my Twitter,
Yeah,
and I put out my NFT, it blows up, and it's like, okay, sorry, I'm gonna just make this money
exactly.
instead of listening to you guys.
Yeah, no, I saw this tweet the other day, a while ago. This artist had like 100K followers, whatever, and she was from like not crypto, so her following primarily comprised of like non-crypto folks who hated NFTs, right? All these artists who hated NFTs, and then
Yeah.
she's like, "Fuck it, like I really need money. I'm gonna make something," and then like all the comments were just like hateful, like attacking her for it and saying that she's like the worst person. And then I think she like muted the comment section and did it anyway. And then she ended up selling it for like 100K or something, a lot of money.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Like the comments, I went through that when I saw that one. The artist is great. But like the comments were like, the lady was saying, or the artist was saying, like, I can't live off what I'm making from my art, like right now, the way it stands. Like I don't even make, I think it was like, I don't even make $10,000 a year on this art. Like I can't
Yeah,
live off that. And then there's comments underneath like, oh no, like I'll support you or whatever. Oh, this is, and they're like, good, go buy the art right
yeah,
now.
Yeah.
But like, oh, I'm not going to, like, obviously you haven't been doing it, like, or else they wouldn't be
yeah,
making 10 grand a year off like their art. Like they were a good artist too.
yeah. And I mean, I think like you're right. I think slowly these shackles will be freed because people like her and people others will see her as an example and be like, oh shit, I can make money off of this. And slowly people will like. At the end of the day, people prioritize like their own money and as they
Mhm.
should, their own money, their own
Yeah.
self, versus as opposed to like what random people on the internet are saying.
Yeah, and
Uh,
you're not like walking into a dark, lonely room either if you make the switch. It's like, well, like, Web3, Twitter will welcome you with open arms.
exactly, and I think like looking at that post too, everyone from like crypto was super nice, super welcoming, and
Mm-hmm.
in some sense, I guess the responsibility falls on the people on us, like who want to like convince these folks.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I think it's also really awesome that in general, what I've seen, the crypto folks are very welcoming, very approach. No matter like how much we get shit on by like everyone else, everyone's still like very. You can't like out meme CT shitlords anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
this
know,
is
it's
so
the things
true.
too. It's crazy because it's like, I think people will switch over, but it's kind of nice for it to be such like a small community. Like everybody kind of, everybody is generally pretty helpful in
Hmm.
crypto too. Like it's actually pretty nice. Like, so I think we should enjoy it while it lasts, while it's still niche.
Yeah,
Enjoy the bear
Yeah,
market.
maybe 10
definitely.
years from now we'll be nostalgically talking about this like
I
this
know.
podcast and this like environment. Because you're right. I think once everyone comes in, it probably will fade or like change at the very least.
Yeah, I mean that's what's kind of nice about Twitter Spaces too. It's kind of cool. We were gonna do more of those too, but like you get people in and you get them on. Sometimes you get them on stage, or you have like some questions, or like you kind of everybody gets to interact a little bit. Some people are weird and it's like
Yeah,
just weird, and some people are
yeah,
like super chill and it's awesome and it's just it's kind of funny.
yeah. Have you been doing a lot of spaces?
We
I wanted to do more, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god.
No, I was just gonna say exactly what you're saying. We're trying to do more spaces. We want to keep the podcast like the episodic form here because we think that it makes sense to kind of do both. And the spaces are really nice because it's just kind of like live content with people just being able to listen in like live time. And we enjoy that too because we can kind of like host our episodes on Twitter and keep them there, like archive them, which is really nice. And I think so many more people are willing to hop on spaces than they are to like hop onto a podcast and jump through all the hoops to
Hmm.
get into like like our recording studio and whatnot. And so it's been I think we want to start doing more spaces. We see it as an opportunity for growth and also an opportunity for outreach.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe we should
likewise.
do a space together. We'll just like we'll bring some. The only problem I have with spaces is like I know some people get nervous about getting up like on stage or whatever,
Mm.
Yeah, when
or
it's
like
live. Yeah.
yeah, you get like, especially like if we did when we get like, let's say 100, 200, whatever, you get these spaces like the people that are like thoughtful and sometimes like are going to ask the good questions don't want to get up on stage. They don't know how long it'll, like, what place in line they are, like if they're going to ever get pulled up. Like, you have to do it on mobile. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? It's just like so annoying. Like, they make it so hard.
The mobile thing is super annoying. They need to make the switch soon to where we can like actually do
Yeah.
a spaces on, via mic and headphone, because having to pop open my phone and use it every time is annoying.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, and then you could go to, like, if you use an emulator or something like that, you might just get like banned
Yeah.
off Twitter. It's like, okay, like, Discord is kind of good too for that, but then you have to wrangle everybody in there. So
True.
kind of hard.
True. Yeah.
But I think it'd be fun.
No, I think I was thinking about it too, because I've been thinking about like ways in which I can like take the my tech community to the next level, right? And I definitely want to start like engaging with like my community, but also like other people on like spaces too. So
Yeah, we'd love to have you on a spaces.
100%. Let's do it sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I think the spaces works really well when you kind of have something kind of consistent too, like a TV show. Like, oh, Friday night, I think there's like one like Rug Radio, and there's like, I know there's this one chick that's really been like killing it, but she's on the spaces like all the time and just like randomly is on everybody's spaces too, which is kind of random, but I'm sure she's amazing. I just haven't heard her, but it's just like, she's like, it seems like she's all over the place. But if it's kind of regular too, people are like, oh, okay, it's like Tuesday night, I'm checking out whatever. Like,
yeah, that's the only downside I think to the spaces is like you have to get enough attention before you have the spaces to like really have an audience. Because like with our episodes, obviously, like we showed out on Twitter, and then people like a week, 2 weeks, a month from now can come back and listen to them. But like with the spaces, I mean, you can still record them so people can go back. But in terms of like having live and like being able to do like AMAs, if you really want like a big audience, you kind of have to give them the heads up and give them enough time to kind of shill it themselves too. So that's the only downside, but I think it'll come with growth.
Makes sense. What do you guys think about like having a set like structure, like set topic, like you talk about this, etc., versus like having it open?
I like it.
Yeah, we like it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, we're pretty freeform on here and stuff like that, but I think it's nice to have kind of a, like, that's what I was gonna mention before too. Like, we're very much like that too. Me and Steve were talking about like, damn, I mean, I like NFTs, I like DeFi, I like crypto in general, like I like all of it, like, and it's kind of hard to like encapsulate it all unless it's like, the Cove show, like, unless it's like about you as the center. So like, traditional marketing, you'd probably just break it up, or you'd, label it. So we were kind of struggling with that as well. So it was kind of hard, but I think probably doing separate ones is probably going to be the best. But then you fracture your audience a little bit too. So it's kind of hard.
Yeah, but we're getting there. We'll figure it out.
It's just experimenting, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're getting.
It's so like young and new, so yeah. No, I was just gonna say the
most
last point
awkward
was like
part
it's
is
so young and new,
I just keep interrupting you. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, that's all good.
I'll just blame it on the strep throat. My brain's still fried. No.
Well, sometimes there's like a delay too, and it's like, or on my end, there's like a delay, and I'm like, oh shit, or somebody pauses, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's only tough thing.
Like, oh, do I start now? Do I not talk?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Exactly.
But that's what happens in spaces too. Like, there's like these long pauses. Like, people get brought up on stage, and then they're like, in a wind tunnel, and their kids screaming or something like that, or they have like a, they're whatever's like going on. It's just like chaos,
like
and then they're like,
behind.
Yeah,
exactly, right. And then it's like, oh hey, can you guys hear me? Like, everybody starts with, can you hear me?
Yeah.
And, I did too.
And the awkward part is like, then the hosts aren't like, yeah, sure, like, go ahead. They're like, everybody kind of waits for a second, and then two answer like, yeah, go ahead, we can hear you. Like, what do you want? Like,
there's nothing wrong with
so
keeping a space as like super casual and like unassuming. I feel like it's just like it's the nature of doing a spaces in the first place, is the fact that like people are and the nature of crypto Web3 anyways is like everyone's in a different place, different time zones, etc. So like as long as the hosts are understanding, I feel like it's never that awkward. But if the hosts are just like really cutthroat and like, we can't hear you, like, next person, that's when I'm like, I'm kind of like, this is weird.
Yeah. Like, when I was listening to those, I'm just like, ouch.
Yeah.
I cringe for them, you know.
Yeah.
I know. I feel bad because that's what I was talking about. Like some of the guys like are really nervous getting up there
Yeah.
too. Like,
Yeah.
and then they get up there and like, hey, super excited, and they're like, yeah, whatever, we can't hear you, or like, or something like that. It's like
Yeah.
feels bad.
Yeah, definitely.
It's bad, man.
But anyways, man, we're
Exactly.
we're a little bit past the hour mark on this, and I mean, unless you have anything that you want to say before we hop off, I think it's a good time to call it. Matthias, CovDuk, if you guys have anything.
No,
No,
that's it.
I'm good.
Well,
Yeah, I think
thanks
we
for-
could do. Of course, we could find stuff, but
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say thanks for joining us, man. It's been like a really enlightening conversation, and I think you have so much valuable content that you put out via Twitter, via Substack, etc. That we could do a podcast with you all the time, spaces at whenever you want. But yeah, no, it was great talking to you, man, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed talking to you guys. We'll definitely do like a space or something else after. We
Yeah.
gotta talk again.
Yeah, definitely. And this episode will
For
probably be
sure.
up either tonight or tomorrow, and we'll just give you a heads up so you can see it on Twitter.
Like, I bet I'll share it too.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be
Sweet.
great. Thanks, man.
Of course. Have a good one, guys.
Yeah, you too.
you too.
Bye.
Bye.